Welcome along once again to the Cardiff City phone-in. A couple of results gone by. Good news, bad news, really. Good news and better news, I suppose. Over the last couple of games, there's one particularly horrific home performance, and then a much better display. I thought actually we showed a bit of fight on the weekend. On the panel tonight, we got Mark Pontin from the Mark Pontin Band, Simon Richards, who is now available for I think circus events as the one-handed man. So we'll see how that goes. And Vince Alm is with us. Vince, thanks very much for joining us. I'll just go into the last couple of matches first. Actually, I have Vince. I think there might be a slight delay on the line. I don't know. Vince, actually, if you can hear me, okay. If I go to you first, and I want to just take you back to the 2-0 home defeat against Preston, who hadn't won away all season. If we could just, what was your thoughts on that in terms of, the City performance and the kind of atmosphere in the stadium, and it seemed to be a pretty low ebb, really.
Yeah, it's for me personally, it reminded me of, it's probably the first game where I can think back to the 90s. It was a League Two fixture. Even though it was played in a championship, because they were much better, but they were better than us. The quality of football wasn't very good, and the fans need something to cheer. There's a lot of apathy there. People are not showing up. They're voting with their feet, which I think is very worrying for the future. Because you're starting to lose generations now. If they think it's expendable money is very hard to come by at the moment with the way life is, and if you want to guarantee enjoyment for your kids, you're not going to take them to the football, unfortunately, at the moment. And it was a very poor game. It wasn't unexpected from my point of view. I think we've been pretty poor all season, and there's several reasons for that. I'm not saying the players are all bad. Some of them are okay and good. But as a team, they're not a team, are they? We can't keep a team because we got half the squad are too old, and I don't mean too old to play, but you need a bit of experience. But when you keep losing players through injury all the time, you can't get any partnerships going. And we're at that stage in the season now where they've all played a few games and they've picked up knocks and they're in and out the side now. And because our experience is aging, and then we've got a big gap to a load of youngsters. We got very few players in their prime, what you would call in their prime, who will play 35, 40 games a season, 7, 8 out of 10. Joe Ralls is an example of that on Saturday against Stoke. He looked awful when he came on the pitch against Preston, but he had that couple of minutes in his legs. And against Stoke, he looked really good. He was a 7, 8 out of 10 player like he used to be. But he's not there every week, and he's not there for 90 minutes every week. And there's not enough of that going on in the club at the moment. So we had that bit of a run, got the back four working well together, and then he's had to change it about 4 or 5 times in the last few weeks, haven't he? Through injuries, suspensions, and whatever else is going on. So it's very difficult to keep partnerships. And an example of that is when you look at teams. I'm no expert on football, but I've watched a lot of it. When we're in opposition and we got the ball, the back four, they tighten up. They keep a narrow so we can't get through the gaps. Our centre-half seem to be miles apart, and the full-backs are apart from the centre-half, and then the midfielders get overrun, and they keep running in through our midfield, through the centre, then through them gaps. And every team's doing it. And that's how Stoke's goal came along, the first one. And we had a warning in the first 10, 15 minutes before that, where Moran was like a coconut shy for him. He kept finding space in the middle and, having the shot on target because we were too wide. We weren't narrow enough as a back four. Yeah. And that comes down to changing the personnel. So we're not getting the basics right, Steve, where I'm coming from. We're not getting the basics right. So you're never going to get quality football because partnerships don't get a chance to flourish. Because one will be injured or somebody like Tanner and Caldwell looking for a couple of games, but Tanner's out now, isn't he? Yeah. We're just not able to get any flow going with the side, and part of that you've got to blame on the recruitment of the squad. Really, do your own work. These players are the wrong end of the late 20s, early 30s. They're going to pick up more injuries. So, yeah, it's just so my opinion of it was a very poor performance against Preston. The fans were absolutely let down. There was no energy in the side, no zip, nothing, and it was a poor showing all around. And I think we'll have a lot more games like that to come at the moment unless something changed drastically.
The atmosphere, that night was just dire, really. I mean, it's just coming up to Christmas. Like I say, cash is tight and all the rest of it. It's fairly cold. Just people aren't going in their droves pretty well, really. And for you, Vince, in terms of your kind of role to some extent to like get the atmosphere going and create a bit of a buzz. I mean, on a bit of a hygiene to hell on a night like that, I'd say.
Yeah, it's absolutely impossible. Now, the last thing you want when we're playing like the way we're playing, they say always stick behind the team. The last thing they want is me smacking the drum as loud as they can at the back of them, and we're playing awful, trying to get support going. And I get that. I did. Me and the lads at the back, we did try and get the atmosphere going a couple of times. In fits and starts, because I don't, it becomes a point where people just don't want it. They just, what they want to see is a bit of effort. That was what was lacking for me against Preston. Was effort. We weren't closing the ball down. We were too far off the ball, and just both sides were really poor. And they're both in positions. They're both in the lower half because of the way they played, and you've got to give the fans something to sing and shout about. At the end of the day, right? We use that phrase at the end of the day. It is an entertainment. People are going down there for that entertainment. They're spending their expendable cash, which is really hard to come by at the moment. Let's reiterate that, to be entertained. Are they being entertained at the moment? The answer is no, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. When we talk about the more recent game, but we've got Mark Pontin and we got Simon Richards with us tonight, Vince as well. So, Mark, it was a bit of a kind of nadir for me. It was kind of the first time, probably one of the first times, I think, certainly recently. I thought, blimey, we are really terrible. We probably are going to go down. I just felt so down about it. There was just like no fight, no apparent passion. The pace, like Vince said, nothing to get the crowd on side, and the horrible part about it really with Preston was same as with QPR. I think neither side had won away all season, and they came here and we just tickled our belly. We rolled over, said stick it in the back of the net, off you go. We don't mind too much. It just seemed like it just didn't seem to be giving it everything. And taking Vince's point about entertainment, I think, all the way back for all of us as fans, if you've got 11 players on the pitch for City and they're clearly just giving you everything they've got, even if the skill factor is not through the roof, if they're giving you that, then, it's a good start, Mark, isn't it?
Well, I agree with Vince when he said it's like watching back in the old Samish Kumar that era, and just before that, when Terry Yorath was manager, we were getting battered all the time, and it was. But at least back then we had, people like Carl Dale and Phil Stanton, and some passionate players and some goal scorers, to watch. But I can't remember seeing a game as poor as that for a long time. It was like watching Sunday League at one point, amateur football. They're on thousands of pounds a week, those players, and the mistakes they were making was laughable, and it was all over the pitch. And it wasn't just the players, the manager didn't seem to have a clue what to do to take the game. Granted, he's had some injuries, but he couldn't fire them up. He couldn't G them up to do anything. And we're playing at home in front of our own fans. And it was embarrassing. I mean, I live in Llanelli, it's very rare I get a chance to go and watch a game. And I almost went in midweek this week. I thought I can go, and I thought twice about it because the amount of money it cost me in fuel, etc., and the time it cost me. And I just had a feeling that it was going to be like that. I don't have Sky TV, so I paid for it to watch it on Now TV. I mean, that's £15 that I spent on that, you know. And it's about the fifth or sixth time this season I paid the £15 and thought, oh well, that was a waste of money, you know. And if you're a young kid watching football, and you can watch Liverpool or you can watch Cardiff, who are you gonna pick? You know, if you want excitement to watch, you're not going to watch that, are you? And you know, it's such a shame because it's a capital city club with a big catchment area, and to be dealt that, you know, against a really good team was terrible.
So Reece Lasky's comment. Sorry, we didn't get the comments in earlier. Reece Lasky's comment there. It's really kind of pertinent, Mark, and I'll come to Simon in a bit on this. You know, 13 players out of contract at the end of the year. So, you know, come January, if we don't tie them down, they're free to speak to other clubs. Yes, they are, right? But they know that they are as well. So, you know, if you're out of contract at the end of the season, let's face it, it's not exactly been a joyride, is it? You know, so far, the first half. You know, you wonder if they're going to be as wholehearted, if they're going to risk taking any knocks, you know, this kind of thing. Or even, you know, sometimes you look at them, I wouldn't say they don't, but people say sometimes you look at them, they look like they don't really care too much, you know.
Well, those 13 players, I'm sure some of them are on big wages. If they want to continue to be on big wages, surely putting in a good performance as an advert of their ability is much more than not giving, you know, a damn and performing badly like that. I mean, I don't see the point in underplaying, even if they're worried about getting injuries or whatever. I don't think it was that. I think that the system wasn't working for the players he put out on the pitch. It hasn't been working for a long time. I mean, Rizza's had enough time to see Bullock play in that kind of system, and it wasn't working then. So he made a change in the system on against Stoke, and it suited the players he put on the pitch better. But the problem is, going forward, will other teams now see us? Well, they're going to play the 3 at a back, which is going to revert to a 5 when they haven't got the ball. Will they work us out again? Because you know, they worked out that Colwell was our threat. They put 2 or 3 men on him when he had the ball. They pressed him out the game, whatever they, you know. And then Rizza didn't have a clue then what to do. Why didn't he go 3 at the back, you know, more often? Why is he only trying it from the start now? It's so many questions, you know.
Yeah. Simon, do you to some extent, probably I personally quite a large extent, do you have sympathy for something like, you know, Omar coming into that role and being dealt that hand, you know?
It's tough, isn't it? And coming into what is quite a toxic environment at the club, and you've got Jonathan and Reece have mentioned what I wanted to talk about at this point,
go on.
Which is talking about the leadership and the board, etc. And I know we're going to come to that probably later anyway. But for me, what is happening on the pitch is a result of the culture at the club, the negative culture at the club, the fact that there is no leadership at the club. Nothing is kind of dripping down from the board down into the team and the staff and the fans, etc. So what you get, Reza came in, he had 5 wins on the bounce. He pretty much, you know, we were top of the form table for those 6 games, weren't we? And then
nearly manager of the month, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And we all sort of thought, okay, this is either a new manager bounce or could it be consistent? And then it's obviously fallen back some way. And I think the reason for that is because there's a lack of philosophy and a lack of framework within the club. So a new manager comes in, he gets a bit of a bounce from the players, but then everyone falls back into type because that culture isn't in place. You know, the philosophy, if you look at all the successful clubs, Premier League and the Championship as well, they have a philosophy through the age groups. They have maybe a list of managers that would be perfect to roll that philosophy out. Should they lose a manager or should a manager be poached? You know, there's always something within place, and that philosophy and that culture is core to all the decisions, all the strategies that club takes. So you can put any manager in there, the team plays the same way to the strengths. The players that are picked from recruitment are there to play in a certain way to certain strengths. But if that leadership and that strategy and that sort of philosophy and that framework doesn't exist, then you're just putting out fires all the time. And that's the massive issue, isn't it? I think it feels like, to me, that we're rolling the dice, and at some point we're going to get found out because that leadership is lacking. And at the
Or have
moment,
we
it feels like
already
we've
been
been
found
found
out?
out. Yeah, but it feels like at the moment that final throw of the dice might well be, Reza. And as you say, I do feel for him. I think he's for his first gig since Leighton Orient and Cheshunt. It's a tough one dealing with Tan. And I saw an Instagram post from him the other day, I think it was yesterday, where he played some kind of music in the background that women of a certain age play when they've just sort of got divorced, all about don't let the haters win. And I just wondered whether he has that sort of strength to deal with all the negativity that surrounds the club, be it from the board, from the players, and be it from the fans as well. It does worry me a little bit, but he's got a tough job, but there's a lot more to sort out than we said. We don't have time to sort it out and time to save us from relegation. It's the question.
No, and Vince, I come back to you on this. I mean, we're only a couple of weeks away now. We've got to think all Christmas coming, which arguably is quite an enjoyable day. Apparently, so that's coming up, and then we're into January, and then the window, the transfer window opens. But I would imagine it's fairly unlikely. I think fairly unlikely the club's going to spend big on bringing in a striker, really. So probably, I don't know, Vince, what you think, but likely to be in the loan market, and that kind of field again. January is the hardest market of the year, without doubt. You've got to wonder, Vince, whether Riz is going to get support from the club to make a significant difference. And is it more a case of, do you think, losing some players from the 25 in order to bring in fresh faces?
It's a big worry, to be honest. Firstly, I don't think Tan is bankrolling the club at the moment, but I don't think he's investing in the club. Is he? The first team, he's looking after his business interests. Just paying the basics really every month to keep the club afloat. Where he is spending a little bit of money is on the academy, because obviously that is giving him a return. We're able to shift players on, buy McGuinness for next to nothing, and moving him on. I think that's where he sees a little bit of chance to make some money. From a team point of view, have we really from the first team, have we really invested in players, the player style in the first team? And going back to Simon's point, it all comes from leadership, and you will lead. If you're a leader, you have a plan, a vision, and you put that plan and a vision, it goes right through the club. Now, I can tell you, academy, they have got a plan, and they've got a way of the style they play from age 9.
Top of the table.
Right up to 21. And it's not about being top of the table either, Steve, right? Yeah. It's about what comes through into the first team.
Yeah.
And what you have a look at the amount of players now that are playing loaned out on league football. I'm okay, it's League 1, League 2, but we haven't had this for years, have we? And we've had one or two break into the first team we haven't had for years, and we shifted a few on to bigger bigger and better clubs in their eyes. Whether they play for them clubs is another matter, but we've made some money on it. And the issue we have is, for me personally, you never get all your transfers right, do you? You always have one or two which are not quite there. We seem to be the other way around. We get one or two that are right, and the rest don't really fit the club, or they don't fit the style of play, or they don't fit the manager. So the transfer committee, or whoever's on our transfer committee, there's a problem with it. And I got no confidence, even if there was money available in January, with where we are presently. And I don't know why that is, because there's no communication. As they say, there's no leadership, there's nothing, there's no plan. So I don't know what any plan is, and I bet Reza don't know. I bet he hasn't got a clue either. So what chance has he got? He's probably got none. And there's only one person who runs the club. Really, you've got a board, but the board really can't do a lot. I think Mehmet probably challenges Vincent Alm now and again. I wouldn't have thought Steve or Ken get much of an opportunity. Mehmet, a businessman in his own right, could probably speak to him a bit more forthright than the others. But as a board, you say sack the board. It don't matter who you put there. ultimately the decision making is for the Vincent Alm. It's not from anyone else. He's the one that got all the purse strings. And really, what he should look at is what does he want to get from this club? If he wants to, let's put the cards on the table. Cardiff, the city the size of Cardiff and the surrounding area, we should demand Premier League football. And I don't mean top six. We should be a permanent fixture in the Premier League, the size of club we are, right? That's where we should be. And if you've got a owner or a board whoever are not on that level, why are they there? So it's not like to say, yeah, we want Premier League football. Well, you've got to have a plan together. And we've had no communication, and we ask these questions all the time about it. Nothing. There was a good point made at our FAB meeting. I'll say this. I can't say that you've got these protocols we're supposed to follow, so which is a bit of frustrating at time. But I'll tell you this: at the last FAB meeting, it was brought out, and it was a good point made by one of my colleagues, that there's no longer like in the program you used to get the chairman's note when you and give you an outline of what they're doing and what they're doing with it. There's nothing like that anymore. Nobody pens chairman say a couple of paragraphs. It's just zero. So I don't know. So going back to transfers, we definitely need players and probably need to move a couple of players out. But based on the last 6-7 transfer windows, have anyone got any confidence really?
Yeah. Elon Musk is looking for a club, Steve. Going to be out with the frying pan into the fire with Elon Musk looking to pick up a championship team.
Well, yeah, the problem with that is he can buy Aston Villa for half the price we're charging. Ready-made Premier League club. And that's the thing. Look, if you'd want to take it on, if I was, we're all different people, but I'm sure, let's go back at one or two owners. Samaman, right? Samaman couldn't take it on anymore, could he? I know he played it on, but in the end, he signed it over to Peter Ridsdale, poor guy, PMG, and they took it on to the next because he couldn't do it anymore. PMG, Peter Ridsdale, they took it on as far as they could, and then they sent it on to Dato Chan. Dato Chan then passed it on to Vincent Tan because he couldn't take it any further, and that's exactly what would normally happen. You think, right, I've done as best I can. I'm going to get my shares. I'll find a backer, and I'll sell it at a reasonable price, and then somebody else will take over the reins. But that doesn't appear to be on the agenda, and there's nobody interested in the club at the moment. Anyway, that hasn't been for a year or two.
And obviously, if the worst was to happen, I can't really bear to say it, but if we were to go down, then obviously, everything changes, doesn't it, in terms of values and everything else. And Vincent Tan, I mean, if he is shelling out the amount of money which we read about to keep the club afloat, rather than kind of investing more so to build on it, to I suppose look after his investment, the major way of protecting that investment, Vince, is to make sure absolutely no way on earth this club goes down.
No, I know, but sometimes you got to go. If we had a forward-thinking owner and board, sometimes go backwards to go forward. Okay, and I can cope with that. Yeah. But the problem is this could be another. If those of us who are old enough to remember the Durban years, this got all the signs of the Durban years. This have at the moment, and we just keep going down, and because the quality's got less and less, and it's got to a point now. This is make or break point, and it might be too late this season. In my opinion, I think we're going to go down. We can't keep a clean sheet, and we don't score enough goals, right? And I that has been the same. We had a couple of games run where we played two teams who were bang out the form, Plymouth and Portsmouth. We looked good. One or two of the other victories, we were fairly. I wouldn't say lucky because you make your own luck, but we got away with it really. Millwall and Norwich, both of them could have put us out the game before we scored our winners really. So you've got to look at the season as a whole, and we've struggled. Our goals against, our minus, and everything. It's like. Jonathan Davis is on about about the board not being bothered to attend. They do. Steve Borley is meant to be on the board. He's at every game home and away, but there's no communication between him and the fans. And I know Ken Chu was there Wednesday, for a fact. But did any fans see him? No, we probably, we probably went in the boardroom, and I don't know whether he faced any fans or he went early or he come late. I don't know, but nobody's seen him. But I know he was there because I did see him from where I was. So so they aren't turning up regular, apart from Steve Borley. And when they do turn up, they're not talking to the fans. So how can they have their finger on the pulse, right? How can they have Peter Ridsdale used to front the fans, Sam Aman used to front the fans. When Julian Jenkins was at the club, he used to front the fans for them and feedback. There's none of that going on because it's all being run by one person, and it's whatever ideas that person wants, that's what they gotta go to. It's very tough there at the moment for the staff.
Yeah, just we're getting into a territory we have to talk about it. I appreciate you. It might be you said about the protocols, etc. But
yeah,
as a City fan of such length and as a focal City fan over many years, what was, if you can say, what was your response to the response or lack of really from the club to the well-written, perfectly reasonable letter from the United fan base, just pointing out the inadequacies? It seemed to be, they just kind of didn't really answer it and threw a bit of petrol on the flames, really.
Yeah, well, it's we have been voted in, like the likes of myself have been voted in to give a voice to the fans in these meetings, right? So I've got a responsibility, and so has the rest of the FAB board, to bring up the questions the fans want. And I can show you, I read on social media after this bit of a wishy-washy response we had, and I'll call it wishy-washy, I'll say it to their faces, but this response we had, that's got nothing to do with the meeting, the response we had over the weekend, okay? So, those people who are saying we're not asking the tough questions, I can show you we have. And I'll tell you one other thing, before I even joined FAB, you talk to anyone, any meeting I had, I've been moaning about this for 3 years now. I haven't just started moaning because we're having a bad run this season. I've been moaning about this since we come back from COVID. Myself and the supporters club, when we've had meetings and when we've been to the individual meetings, we've been to travel club meetings. You ask anyone that attends our meetings. In fact, people have been telling me that I've been a bit short and that, but I'm frustrated, Steve, right? I am absolutely frustrated. And the response was probably what I expected, because that's that's how they have been responding to a lot of stuff, not just to FAB, but to other people. And look, I don't want to. The thing is, we can all, it's good there's people, people are supporting us, but also to the people who are not supporting us, I can assure them we're not rolling over and letting it go. And we're as angry and as frustrated as you were of that response. And that's what I can say. We're not just sitting back and taking that one on the chin, and we haven't. Okay, and it really annoys me that people think it annoys me that a little bit of communication from the club would actually probably ease most things down. It would, and it doesn't take a lot. And that's what really annoys and frustrates me, that a little bit of communication every now and again. When was the last time we had any communication from anyone really to the fan base? We've had 1 or 2 meetings, but there's been nothing. They had the fans parliament. We had about 40 or 50 turned up. I invited guests. Okay, they were random off the thing, and that's the only time anyone's really addressed anything. And there was some good bits from people within the club, but their hands are tied. They're trying to do good work, but it's very difficult for them. And I would imagine people who are employed by the club are just as frustrated as the supporters, although they can't come out and say that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really interesting, Mark, to. It's never going to happen, unfortunately, but it would be really interesting to get Steve Borley's opinions on it, actually, because he's loved the club for pretty well like us, really, but from a more of a kind of an involved role. Steve Thomas has made this comment, which is perfectly fine, Steve. I do agree with you. We got a good reaction at Stoke on Saturday. Can we mention that? Willock looked the player we thought we were getting, and then El Ghazi had a good time too. And we aren't relegated yet. There was, I thought it was quite heartening actually, Mark. A lot more battle, a lot more fight. Looked like we're more up for it, and in general, just a much improved performance on the midweek. Would you agree?
I would agree. I mean, just to touch on what you've been talking about with Vince, it's. I watched an interview with Riza during the week where he was asked, "Does he know what the transfer budget is? Will they be spending money?" I said, "Have you had any communication?" And he said, "No." So he doesn't know either. I don't think that anybody apart from Vincent Tan knows anything, and this has been going on for years, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I without being prone to being stereotyping people, the Malaysian culture is one of gambling and being frugal, and the gamble I think is about to is not, he's not going to win this one. His luck's running out. I can't see without any investment in the playing squad that we're going to survive, even with an improved performance at Stoke. And let's be honest, though, Stoke didn't know that we were going to set up that like that. They perhaps were taken a little bit by surprise at the lineup. It took them a little bit to work us out, et cetera, et cetera. But Stoke aren't much of a team either, are they? They hadn't won in 6.
They don't lose a home very often.
No, I mean, yeah, I did think we played a lot. I think Willock was great.
Willock had a really good game.
Here we are, Steve. Here's one. The reason why I researched this about playing at home, they moved the away end to the other corner, which is a lot better. It's nice and warm. Right?
Yeah.
But I found out the reason why is because they thought they were losing at home because the away fans would intimidate the players coming off. So the club actually listened to them, moved the away end and put the home fans there. Before Saturday, they had achieved 13 points at home, 1 point more than Cardiff have at home this season.
Oh, right, really?
Yeah, so they might not get beat very much at home, but they maybe, I don't know, but from a points tally, they're 1 point ahead of us. That's it's 2 now because they drew against us. But so they're not that good. Sorry, Mark, the bet in. I just thought.
Oh, that's right. I mean, I agree. They're not that good. And you look at the. Let's be honest. We had 2 goalkeeper errors, really, especially the second goal.
Unfortunately,
he should have punched that. He should have, and the defense was shaky the whole game. It really was, and. I still don't rate Yako Mate up front, even though he did hit the crossbar. I still don't rate him as a player at all. I know we haven't got that many options to come off the bench or to start the game, but I can't understand why he brought Kanga on. I mean, that's pointless. That guy is not a footballer. It's just somebody that runs around the pitch in shorts and a top. I don't know what the point of Kanga is at all, but. Maybe we'll have a little bounce now with a new system and we'll win a few or draw a few, but I can't see us competing against better teams than Stoke. We're going to get torn apart by the likes of Sheffield United coming up. We got Watford coming up. I mean, okay, not as good as Sheffield, but we got to play all the leads, and we got the Jacks coming up. They're doing well. I can't see us competing in games like that with the players we've got. We can't, like Vince said, we can't score and we can't keep a clean sheet. So it's
apart from that, it's okay.
Apart from that, yeah.
We're rubbish in the middle.
but I honestly thought we were much better on the weekend, and a couple of names just to throw in there, Simon, just to to sort of give him credit where it's due. Reno coming in at right wing back. What I like about him is he's your archetypal classic solid pro. He doesn't play very much. He comes in, he doesn't let you down, right? And he needs
that's what you need in these fights, isn't it? In these battles when you're at the bottom and you are rooted at the bottom and you can have a long season.
The
You
nearly
can't
man.
undervalue those pros, can you? That can graft.
Yeah,
Doesn't look good always.
He did well, you know. Credit
Mm.
to him, and also Willock, who played more of a kind of a floating role, I suppose, up front. He looked really good.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe we haven't made the most of him.
Are you trying to be
And-
optimistic now, Steve? Because we've
no,
been a bit negative so far.
I honestly thought we
Good. Yeah.
thought we were much better. I honestly thought we should have won. It was unfortunately a bit of a kamikaze defending right at the end in the last few seconds. You know, it's with the benefit of hindsight. If we'd stayed on his line, you know, they wouldn't have scored. But the analogy I would use with that with Jack, and apart from that, yeah, he made the first save. You could argue a defender should have been there before or with the striker, but he should have parried it away from the goal more. And the second one, obviously, he came for it and he didn't get there. But the analogy is with that, and apart from that, I thought he played it quite well, actually. You know, if you take a penalty, you hear a manager, you know, somebody's got to miss that penalty, right? So when they missed the penalty, they would say, well, at least he had the guts to come and take it. And, you know, so Jack, he went for it. He didn't get there. And when you're a goalkeeper, it's the back of the net, isn't it? So he's, you know, it's that kind of position, isn't it, where you're exposed. But if only we'd held on like a commentary. Yeah. One mistake
and it leads to a goal, doesn't it? And you become the villain of the piece. But I think what Mark and Vince has touched on here about the recruitment is key moving forward, isn't it? Because if you look at the squad and the confidence in the squad, it does need to be kind of a little bit reborn. And I agree completely with what Nigel's saying on there. If the manager doesn't have a clue what's going on in 2 weeks' time, then there's not been any planning behind the scenes. We haven't got a list of players. So even if we have suddenly Tan says, I'll tell you what, I don't want to get relegated. Here's 50 million. Then there's not even sort of a list of players that could potentially be signed at this moment in time. So again, it comes back to what Nigel, Jonathan have been talking about in the comments, that lack of planning and that lack of leadership. And would you think if you gave Reza 25 million, would he be able to spend it correctly? You know, has that kind of recruitment process been?
I don't think that's going to be
through strategy. You know, well, I thought you were being optimistic for a minute, Steve, just for 5 minutes. But you know, are you going to be able to bring those players in? And what Mark was saying as well about the strikers and Kanga, it's amazing how many players leave Cardiff, strikers in particular, and then score 15 goals next season or 20 goals next season in a fairly similar league, probably not quite as good as well. So again, you're thinking, what happens to Cardiff and what happens to strikers, and is it that cultural thing as well? It's just tricky because you see some players coming, maybe that will get 1 or 2 goals with us that suddenly are getting 15 to 20 goals this season. They leave us.
Yeah. So Lee is responding to Vince's comments there, and yeah, I mean that's a really key point that Vince makes. I think we're all, you know, Vince probably more than anyone, in honesty, so frustrated with this. You know, if it's the potential of Cardiff City, and the fan base and the catchment area, and you know everything. What do you think about what Lee's saying there, Vince?
Well, I haven't got a crystal ball, but anyone, even kids, can see that we're not playing to any plan. We got no plan, have we? It's just go from, you know, this. The managers are different for the start. You know, they all got different styles. One manager got one style, another. There's no succession plan of, you know, right, we want this style of manager. The manager, you know, this is the sort of football. Yeah, football is all about passing, moving, and it's not always about formations. You know, it's not about 5-3-2-1, and it's not about that. It's about having a purpose in your game, moving the ball forward when you got it to try and score a goal. Because let's just look at the basics, right? Whatever formation and whatever players you use, the key is to get that ball, shift it forward, and get into the opposition's net. Okay, that's fundamental, and don't let it happen. And defend it against your going into your net. So how do you defend it? What you do, you close that ball down. You stop them. You stop them passing around. So you try and win that ball back as quick as you can. That is the philosophy. All the great managers like Guardiola, Wenger, you know, back to Bob Paisley. That was their philosophy. You play football with purpose. So when you get the ball, it don't matter what style of football you play. Steven Gerrard, right? Was he a long ball merchant, or was he had a real accurate long pass? It doesn't really matter. If you cut the midfield out because you've got the ability to smack the ball 70 yards onto the winger's toenail, well, that you've got to play the quality there. It doesn't matter about style. What it matters is playing football with purpose. And we like Bullet was football by numbers by the looks of it. Slide rule, you can't move 20 yards out of your position. You've got to pass it this way. You've got to do it. Oh no, you can't. It's all about, whereas Warnock, you look at Warnock old fashioned, just get it forward any shape you want, and we'll play the football in their half and win the ball back. And yeah, it's just we got a lot of we got a lot of work to do that I don't think we can do this season to beat the drop. I can't. The other teams are scoring goals. The teams who are worse than us, who look worse than us, score more goals than us. That's the problem. And we need to find a way to get up, to try and stop leaking so many goals and get the ball in the net. And how we do that, I haven't got a clue, to be honest with you, the way we're currently going about our business. And going back to Stoke, Jack Alnwick, okay, he made a mistake, but he's got enough in the tank that we can, he's won us a few games in the past.
We had a couple of good saves.
But it was game management that done that, Steve, right? We had the ball for 2 or 3 minutes, and instead of trying to take it to the corner, we were passing it back. We were inviting them into our half. Players with experience would be having a go, get it forward, get it in the corner, get it in there after the pitch. We were passing it sideways and back at the end. And so that free kick would have never happened if we'd been in there after the pitch. It wouldn't have been an issue. The game management was just, and that's because there's a lack of confidence and they were nervous. We were in front, away from home. And that's when you need players to stand up and say, "Oi, this is what we're doing." They've got that. The manager probably was thinking the same as us, But you need your players on the pitch, your leaders on the pitch, where there's a lack of leadership on the pitch at the moment as well.
So just mentioning it, and I mean, this is probably good like a lead balloon, but again, for me, hats off to Joe Rawls. Joe Rawls comes in, he does a job. He's not there to be Ronaldinho or whatever. He's there to be Joe Rawls. To me, he's a really good example of someone who's been at the club a long time, and the club, from much as I can see, you've probably met him a few times, Vince. I would think. It seems to me that he cares about the club. He cares about the club. He cares. He cares.
Yeah,
he puts it in.
You could see it on Saturday. That's why I said early on. It was nice to see Joe Rawls back to his 7, 8 out of 10 role, right? The first 15 minutes, Steve, we done well for 5-10 minutes, okay, but the next 10 minutes after that, it was like a coconut chai. As I said, we had changed formation, whatever formation we were playing, like God knows, right? We had a back four and we had 2 older midfielders, right? So I was looking at it from a defensive point of view. But there was too many gaps, they were allowing players to run into. As I said, Moran he must have had 3 or 4 shots, but we tightened that up. They did do that, and that was Rolls and Siopis done that. Yeah. They tightened them, they got rid of them gaps. Actually. Yeah, and what would happen in other games? We probably would have lost that 3-4-1. 2, well, maybe not 4, but 2 or 3 we would have lost. We would have lost that if them 2 hadn't been on the pitch, because we were being overrun. We were at that point.
Just to get through a little bit before the end of the show, Vince, I want to come back to you on one thing. Was that what you just said there is so spot on, because our first goal, he just had so much time and space to put the shot in. Yeah. And it was like you could just see it. You could just kind of see it coming. I don't know what you can say about this, Vince. What's your take on this idea of the protest? On January the 18th. Being the Swansea game and all the rest of it, and is it you kind of think it's a good idea? The timing's the time, right, etc.
This is my personal opinion on it, Steve. Right, so this is not supporters club. This is not Fab. This is my own personal opinion. Okay, so if people this is me personally. I'm not against people protesting. This is frustrating, right? Long as it doesn't spill onto the field where the players are playing, because at the end of the day, we've got to try and support them. They need it more than anything at the moment. I understand it, okay? I understand why people need to protest. I understand it, because are they listening to anything else? They're not, are they? We're trying hard from all angles, and you know, look, I won't be there myself, but I also understand why people need to protest. Okay, and I'm not against them protesting. I really ain't. I get their frustration. As long as they keep it on the right side of decent, we don't need hate. What we don't need is hate in the club. Okay, if people are not fit to fit in a round hole and a square peg, well, that ain't their fault. But what we need is some leadership to bring all these groups together. And but yeah, I look, I'm not against this, Steve. I personally won't be protesting, but I really fully understand why they're protesting. I really do, and I understand probably a bigger thing that'll be more concerning to the club, and I know it'll affect him more than any protest, is people not turning up for the football, the apathy, because seeing all them empty seats. That was the thing that really one of the things that really, with the red shirts, the stadium got emptier and emptier and emptier when we were playing in red, and people had stopped coming. And I think that'll be the protests. Yeah, it'll get a bit of local media coverage. It might get a little bit of national, but if you're not live on Sky and there's nobody in the stadium, and that goes on the world, and then that if you're a business person, that doesn't bode well for you, really, I suppose. And I think that, and not only that, I see income as being lost. But yeah, going back, my own personal opinion is I understand why people are protesting. It's their right to protest as well. They got a right to protest, and it just shows they care for the club, Steve, right? And it's their passion, and they feel desperate that that's what they got to do. So let's not have a go at them. That is their way of showing their anger. Look, all right. And I'm, as I said, I do my business differently to some people, but I'm just as frustrated and desperate as them, and I'm on the same page, and I get why they're protesting. But that's my own personal opinion. Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, Vince. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, Mark, do you want to any thoughts on it?
I agree with Vince. I think it's got to the point where someone has to do something, and some fans will vote with their feet and go to the games. Other fans will want to protest, but none of us we're thinking or doing any of this if it was better. If things were better. We're all worried about the future of Cardiff City, and it's about time, I think, that we made our feelings heard, whether it's not going to the games or it's protests. I mean, I can't attend the protest myself. If I lived more locally, I probably would go on it, if I'm honest. It's we're all worried about the future, aren't we? We want to see a decent Cardiff City, not a Cardiff City that potentially going to be in a winding up situation again in the future. So I agree with it. I agree with Vince. I agree with the protest.
Simon?
Yes, yeah. I mean, sometimes you just want to feel heard. And at the moment, we're not feeling heard. The fans aren't feeling heard. And it's an opportunity to get out there and show the disquiet. I mean, someone mentioned in the chat, will Tan even know? But he will know. He will get there. And I wonder, I think the reason that potentially billionaires get into football is for ego reasons. They want to be adored. And maybe that ship sailed a long time ago for Tan, but surely he'd find this embarrassing on a business footing. If the club he owns, one of the many clubs he owns, but it's quite a sort of high profile club, and if fans are out there chanting against him, that might make him feel or think twice and make him feel quite uncomfortable. So no, I think I'm all up for the protest. I think that opportunity to go out there and say, put your point across in a nice, non-toxic way, as Vince said there, and have your say, and hopefully feel heard. And as long as it's all well organised and it brings everyone together. And again, as sort of Vince alluded to there, so that leadership off the pitch within the fans groups as well, to really make it something that does get heard all the way over in Malaysia. Yeah.
Okay. And the timing of the thing is kind of significant, particularly if it's not that far away. So we're going to be, we are going to be significantly below the table to our friends down west. it's just could be quite an interesting day. But it's just been horrific. So you can understand how fans are.
You feel for
unhappy.
you've got to feel for Man City fans all over. You're listening to Five Live on the weekend, and it's been a nightmare for Man City fans. You're like, oh bless them. Isn't it terrible? Only 5 Premier League trophies.
Yeah.
It must be painful.
Who would have said the last 12 games would have a better record than Man City might?
yeah, that's true. We got there's a couple of things. I want to mention this, by the way. I'll just go to you, Vince, on this. Guido Bergstaller and that really nasty injury, that he's had. He wasn't a particularly kind of prominent player with Cardiff City, but what a terrible thing to happen.
It is, yeah. He was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, wasn't it? Signed with a lovely sign, and I actually thought he was technically good, but he had no pace, did he? He had absolutely no pace at all for a midfielder, and he reminded me of Jan Mulby in the FA Cup final against Wimbledon in 1988. He was like a roundabout in the middle, the game just went round him. But this sad news. I just hope he pulls through, these brain, skull fractures and how they can, you can't, sometimes you don't always come back fully recovered, do you, from them? So thoughts are with him and his family, it's really serious.
Yeah, absolutely. From everyone here, I'm sure. It transcends football, then that kind of thing. Going on to lighter matters, at some point Isaac will be back, maybe towards the end of January. Be like a new signing, actually, wouldn't he, Vince? So I'm looking forward to that. Any thoughts on the rumor of Kion Atete maybe moving away? I suppose we're gonna have to do some farming.
I know this. He seemed to have a little bit of ability, but not enough. Well, I don't know. I don't like to say that. His desire was a little bit lacking at times, wasn't it? Busting that gut, and he's quite injury prone. I think it's probably the right thing to do. It hasn't worked for him here as a player, and it hasn't worked for us. So if they have got another club, I think it is time to part the waves. And Isaac coming back will be a plus because he has got quality. He can put a good ball in. He has got quality, but we need somebody on the end of it, don't we? But he does work well with Ruben. That is one thing. And they're both Cardiff fans. Him and Ruben are both Cardiff fans. They know what the club's about. And I get a little bit annoyed sometimes. When people have a go at them, they've come through the ranks. And look, then we're not. Not every player can turn out to be like Cole Palmer, say, okay, but they can still be very good players, and that's what they are. They're very good players, and they can play at this level, as they are at the moment, and they may go on to bigger and better things. But to play a championship level week in, week out is good in itself. I think people underestimate that, and they're our own players. They're players that have come through Cardiff, so. Let's not forget that. I remember Earnshaw having stick for a while when he was coming through, and he turned out to be great. So hopefully them two will do the same. And it's just they're Cardiff. These are Cardiff boys now, man. We're talking about. We're not talking about people who come from another club and coming towards the end of their career. These are people who have come right through the ranks and supported Cardiff as when they were younger as well.
Yeah. Of course, Mark is a possibility. Maybe young Joel, he's been doing well at lower level, but he's, the Colwells together is something to look forward to in the future. Isaac, with one of our own kind of thing. I love Isaac Davis anyway. I'd love to see him bombing down the right actually, because I thought what works really well, I think, is Callum O'Dowda. Can we please give him another contract, by the way? When he gets down the left, he puts the ball in on his correct foot. He was really, again, doing a good job in that. And that's what I know. I'm an old schooler there, but I quite like the idea of crosses coming into the box for the strikers. Really.
Well. To be fair, I think we cross more in a Stoke game than we have for a while. But there's just never anybody in the box to put it in the net, is there? So that's the problem we got. But it wasn't one of Tan's conditions, if you like, when he appointed Rizza to can you play the youngsters? No, maybe that was a sell him, but he did mention, can you play the youngsters? So when Isaac comes back, and if that's all the entertainment we're going to have this season, is watching Isaac and Ruben Cardiff boys playing, then I suppose I'll have to take that. You know what I mean? But I think we've got a great crop of youngsters.
Yeah, we have, and they won again today. Then they beat QPR 2-1, the top of the table for I agree with Vince. It's not about really the league, but they're playing well, and they seem to have a philosophy. We got Sheffield United, of course, on the weekend. I don't think McBurney's in the squad, so I'm not sure whether he's knocking about. But Rhian Brewster is there, of course, and there's a Mr. Kiefer Moore. So you're going to get a tenner on Kiefer to score on the weekend, Simon, at all? Or?
Well, he scored on the weekend, last weekend. Did he get a penalty or something on those sort of lines? But I used to do the old tactical betting from time to time. Bet against your team and you can't lose almost. At least you get some money out of it. And you'd be making a fortune if you're a Cardiff fan this season, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
To be fair. But no, I think, it's an interesting point from Steve here. And I know someone else mentioned it in the chat that, against the bigger sides, potentially, it gives us an opportunity to up our game a little bit as well. So there's definitely reason to be optimistic. I always like to try and finish these sort of these sessions, these counselling sort of sessions that we have every so often about Cardiff City on an optimistic note. And the youth coming through is definitely one of them. And nothing can pick up a team like having young players from that city coming through and doing the job on the pitch. So that is the area of optimism to definitely focus on as a Cardiff fan. We got protests. We all know the board aren't great. There's no plan or strategy, but actually we got some really good young players here that we can potentially build a good League One team around. So.
I'll let you get away with that. Yeah, okay. McBurney apparently is going to play in Spain now. I didn't know that. Sorry. Should we quickly whiz around and get a quick score prediction for Sheffield United? Vince?
Well, they're not prolific scorers, and they do give you a chance. It's whether we can take them chances. But I still think they'll probably have a little bit too much for us, and it'll either be 2-0 or 2-1. It depends whether we take our chance when it comes along. But I think they'll get as it stands at the moment, they get a couple. But I think it'll be a decent game to watch, especially if the midfield looked a lot better on the weekend. It looked more competitive, and there was a bit more quality in our play. We didn't give the ball away so much, and we did move the ball with purpose. So is it, as you quite rightly said, Simon and Stephen Thomas, they'll come here to win the game, so they will leave gaps.
Mark?
I'm gonna go for a 1-1 draw, and I'm hoping that he brings Reindorf on, and he scores that one goal. I want him to kick off his career now, and then we can send Kanga back in January. That's what I'm hoping. So I'm going to go for a 1-1.
And Simon?
Yeah, I love the Championship. Anyone can beat anyone. So I'm going to go 2-0 Cardiff. I think it's going to be a massive upset, and it's going to kick-start our season, and we're going to end up in the playoffs, Steve. So it'll all be forgotten at the end of the season at Wembley. All right?
That's the correct response. Well, thanks very much.
I would say, runners up more like. I'm thinking that we won't go up as champions. Runners up, it'll be this.
No, but that's too far fetched, isn't it, Vince? Champions.
It is, yeah.
Anyway, thanks all. Good show. Cheers all. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.